Welcome back to The Hook on Woodward Sports Network, Detroit's all-digital network, live from MyBookie Studios. It is Wednesday, April 7th. Right before our break, we saw a very sad clip of Ashley Solis, the very first woman in the Deshaun Watson case who started the case. She felt that she was a pioneer in getting people to do this. Joining us right now, we've got former federal prosecutor Scott Strauss joining us on the phone. Hi, Scott. Welcome to The Hook.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. And I got to tell you, congratulations to all of you guys. You guys are doing a wicked awesome job. So keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks, Scott.
Oh, God. We got a wicked awesome from Florida.
I'm telling you, everywhere I go, people say you guys are winning. So I just want to congratulate you.
Well, we heard you're a wicked awesome, high-powered attorney in Miami. That's why we have you on, Scott. And thanks so much. Hey, take us through this. Now, I know you know of this Rusty Hardin lawyer, one of the best in the biz, and Deshaun Watson went out and got this guy. He's got 22 women that say he has done bad things to them through massage therapy. And we had Ashley Solis, we had the video of her talking about it and how she can't even do a massage anymore. Her hands shake. She has lost her love of the one thing that she loved doing, massage therapy. Take us through this case for us, please.
Sure. So let me just say this. I've spent tremendous amount of time throughout the course of my career, both as a prosecutor and now on the other side. And I'll tell you this. Everyone needs to know one thing, that when someone is alleged to have committed a crime, and now it's becoming a criminal investigation, at least that's what I'm hearing, that everyone is presumed innocent. And I can't stress that enough. And if your listeners should know anything, that is the key. You are presumed innocent, and you wait until the evidence comes forward. Now, as you noted, there was a press conference, and I stress the word press conference. It was a well-orchestrated, in my opinion, press conference. Why? Because you had somebody reading from notes from a lawyer. And I think that's important because, generally speaking, in these types of cases, meaning cases involving sexual abuse, sexual allegation, or exposure of organs, you don't see this too often. In fact, it didn't come for a week until some victims publicly came out. But the fact of the matter is Rusty Hardin is one of the best in the business. He's been around a very long time, and I can guarantee you one thing: he is doing everything he can to ensure that his clients' rights are being protected, and he will. I have no doubt in my mind. So I'm confident that when this is all said and done, that the evidence, wherever it points us, that Rusty will have done a very good job. So I commend him for at least hiring him, if not me, of course.
Well, Scott, I'm going to say that you're instantly great at what you do. I know that because I feel that a defendant's attorney their job is to create probable or reasonable doubt, and then in the juror's mind for them to say, maybe he's not guilty of this. And the second you came out saying a well-orchestrated press conference, reading notes that were pretty much done by her attorney, I was like, oh, you know what? It kind of took away that human aspect that I had for Ashley, where I was like, this is awful. Here she is, like, reading her diary to us. And I felt so much compassion for her. Not that I don't still feel compassion for her, but now suddenly, once I heard you say that, I was like, again, a well-orchestrated press conference brought on by her attorneys. But if you were Rusty Hardin and you saw this, what are you telling Deshaun Watson at the moment?
Sure. I can tell you what I would have already have done, and it appears based on some emails that have been put out there, is this was a situation where people were coming forward and asking to get paid money in exchange for silence. So someone comes to me, it's very simple. I immediately begin the investigation. I have private investigators. Usually they're former federal agents. They're doing everything that they possibly can to dig up as much information as possible about the people that are attacking my client or clients, okay? And whether it's one person that's allegedly doing it, or whether it's 100, or whether it's 22, the crew of former federal agents that I work with and know this inside and out, we're doing everything. We're making sure that we have text messages, that we have emails, that we have photos, that we have surveillance, anything, including preserving, should it be necessary, any video surveillance. But one thing I can tell you, you're not hearing much from the person you want to hear from anytime this happens, if at all, is the lawyer. And I think that's critical. But I would also want to ensure, if finance is the motive, and at least according to two of them, two emails that I read that were released, that it appears that money is definitely a very, very big motive. And let me just say something. I'm not saying that these women are wrong. I'm not saying this didn't happen. I'm just saying everyone is to presume he is innocent. That's all I'm saying. I just want to be clear about that.
Right.
Now, Scott, we're talking to Scott Strauss. You can catch him online at Scott Strauss Law. I was wondering, with the news today of Nike, the endorsements, now we see the public perception. Dre Beats, him losing to Deshaun Watson, losing endorsements. What is going to transpire in these next few days, or as the general public, if we're looking into this? Obviously, yeah, you mentioned the different emails about, we've seen the $100,000 that they wanted as, hush money, but now they're coming out. So it's both ways. And to me, it seems like I see the argument this way, the argument this way. The fact that you tell me as a defense lawyer he's innocent until proven guilty. How does this play out in the next week or 2 weeks or so, or what do we look to see or to hear from for clarity?
So two things. The NFL is conducting their own internal investigation, and I would imagine it's very similar to what the defense would be doing. But listen, I think Nike said they're suspending them. That's what I read. Now, suspending the contracts. A lot of them have integrity provisions to protect the brand Nike in the event situations like this happen. But that's why I said, and by the way, it's not just me who's saying he's presumed innocent, right? I'm not making this up. The Constitution says this. Right. So when someone's charged, they're presumed innocent. And so I think it's important that while Nike and Beats say we don't want him as a public figure associated with our brand, let's wait and see until how the investigation plays out. But let me tell you this, as a matter of background. I was the prosecutor when I first got the call about Quentin Dunbar, okay? And I remember, I know his lawyer very well. So we saw where that went. Now, I'm not saying this is the exact same thing, but that was precisely an issue where you had people motivated by money in exchange for basically a shakedown. We're gonna tell the police that you did X, Y, and Z. He was actually arrested and held no bond. Mm-hmm. And so that is why it's so critical that you look at the motives of the people, because that is always the case. You look at the motives of the people that are making the allegations. Because whether it goes criminal or civil, motive or bias is always fair issue on cross-examination. Always.
Scott, you were saying the motive, right? And I felt like one thing that I took away from Ashley Solis's interview was she made it very clear that she can no longer be a massage therapist. She's going to have to retrain. Her livelihood, her profession is now gone because of these nightmares that she continuously has, which I would understand, right? If I was in her position, I would probably never want to be a massage therapist ever again. But I did feel that she certainly did hit the buzzard words. But is there a chance? Is there any way that anybody's going to start saying maybe these women were okay with it at the moment for an extra tip, and then now have regret, and they're just misinterpreting what happened? Is that a possibility?
Well, when you say an extra tip, you're saying, I mean, there's $100,000 tip that we're talking about now versus something, might have happened during the moment. But I will say this. It's not unusual for victims in sexual assault cases to delay coming forward. That is not unusual. It happens, but I do think it's something, and it often is something, that is explored in terms of motives. Why did the person wait as long? Now, the prosecution, if you want to call it that, or the plaintiffs in this case, can hire experts to explain why victims of sexual assault wait. Shame, embarrassment, insecure. I mean, there's a whole list of reasons why someone who's a victim of sexual assault wouldn't come forward. But that being the case, we're so early on in the investigation, and that's why it's so critical that he hired a good lawyer, which he did, and we wait to see how the process plays out, and we wait to see where the evidence leads us and where the evidence takes us, and then make a decision. So I always say to everyone, by the way, it doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter your political affiliation. You have to presume that someone charged or investigated, and certainly is being charged in the light of public forum or in the media, that you presume their innocence. And if I recall correctly, that's what Rusty said way back when Roger Clemens first got in trouble.
Scott Strauss, our guest here on The Hook on Woodward Sports Network. I want to thank him. Former federal prosecutor, now just a wicked awesome white-collar and internal investigation lawyer down in Miami. Now, Rusty came up with 18 women that said Deshaun Watson's an upstanding guy. We gave him a massage. He didn't ask for anything extra. And let me ask you this. Deshaun Watson, he lives in a mansion, obviously, all the money he makes. Don't most athletes have video surveillance in their home, outside their home? We heard about, we go back to the Aaron Hernandez case. We can go back years about that. I'm just thinking, what are the odds on him having a video surveillance that maybe the other lawyer, Tony Busby, can ask for?
Very, very strong. Now, whether or not he still has it or not is a separate story. But he's got. But not only that, you're talking about video cameras inside the house, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So where those video cameras are, and whether or not there's footage is one question. Whether or not it's still preserved is a second question. But I think also important, short of the video surveillance, is who did these people call after these alleged events occurred? You can subpoena the cell phone records.
Sure.
Who did they text? Right? That's what I want to know. Did they call or text anyone?
Yeah, one of the girls said that she called and told her mom and her best friend, I think, immediately.
Yeah.
And so they've got those records.
They got the cell phone records.
Yep.
Okay, so the question is then, and cell phones tell us everywhere, where did they drive to? Because you can do a forensic download on a cell phone. Who did they text? What was said? And as Russ, if I was Rusty, I'd be having a very candid conversation with my client in terms of, hey, you got to let me know what I'm up against here.
Right.
How often do you text message? Are you sending pictures? And that pictures are speak a million words. That's for sure.
I got a question from an audience member wondering if this happens to be a civil suit, if Deshaun Watson is proven innocent, does he have a civil case against the people that are accusing him if it doesn't go to trial? Or how does this play out as far as perception?
Yeah. So two things. Because he's a public figure, under the New York Times versus Sullivan, as it's written right now, he's held, the victims or the alleged victims are held to a higher standard. They have to show that either A, they were lying, or it was somewhat grossly negligent or reckless, I should say. And so if he can establish that, if Watson can establish that, then he absolutely has a defamation claim. The reality is who does that defamation claim against? Is it against the press? Is it against the alleged victims? Because if it's against the alleged victims, this isn't a situation where someone's suing Fox News or CNN for $100 billion. Because if that's the case, it's highly unlikely that these alleged victims have that kind of money. Those types of cases generally settle in media forums.
Okay. Thank you.
Scott,
It would be unusual.
Right.
Okay.
Scott, is there anything unusual about it being like straight to a civil case without it being a criminal case at all? Like, does that show a little bit of like their intent with the money and stuff like that, or like how's that looked at in the eyes of like the judge and whatnot of this not being solved criminally yet?
Well, no. My understanding is it's a criminal investigation right now. Now, if it turns out that there's not sufficient evidence to charge him criminally, how that plays out in the eyes of a civil judge, judges, in civil court, they just determine whether or not there's enough for the jury to make a determination on liability or money. That's it. They're not getting in the middle of jail. So I just think that to the extent there is not a criminal investigation, criminal charges, if there are no criminal charges filed, it certainly changes my analysis.
Right. Scott, we got one more final question before we let you go. What do you think is the right thing for the NFL to do at the moment?
To do what they're doing, to hire an investigator, have their own people internally. Listen, you have to take, as I said before, these are serious allegations.
Right.
You have to take it very seriously. Okay? I'm not minimizing that for a second. You have to take it seriously. Are you asking me if I think they should suspend him?
Right. Suspend him maybe
Or
until we know what's going to go on, because this could be something that goes well into the season. And are you going to have him out there playing, being your quarterback, being a face of the NFL the way he is? I mean, he was kind of America's darling. Everybody was thinking, how could this be Deshaun Watson? No way.
Well, and again, it goes to what I was saying earlier. To the extent that the internal investigation leads them, now they don't have to go by a standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. NFL can do whatever they want. I got that. But I do think they should. This is just me saying this is someone who's presumed innocent. Let's see where the evidence goes, right? But to the extent they start unraveling more and more information, and to the extent they feel that something is more damning and may reflect poorly, not just on the team, but on the NFL as a community, the NFL is going to do what they're going to do, and I certainly would respect them if they decided to suspend him, only if that they came to a conclusion that there was some very, very high likelihood of assault. So right. I think they're doing the right thing. I don't think they should immediately. I've always been a proponent, a champion of let's presume people are innocent, give them the benefit of the doubt, and let's just see where the evidence takes us.
Right. Always innocent until proven guilty. That's kind of where I stand as well. All right, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. You can follow Scott on his social media at Scott Strauss Law. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and answer some of the questions that we had on our social media and that we had personally.